Okay, so this is probably Darci's archive, but it might be Darci's corner. And it is January 16th, 2022. I'm in Camrose, Alberta. We're still in a pandemic. And I'm giving this information in case I decide to upload this to Darci's corner. In case y'all haven't noticed, I kind of use Darci's corner as like a personal therapy session for myself. And in this particular case, I'm in my vehicle and I just, something's telling me to share this. So I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it relatively quickly. I'm in the middle of my night run and my night job. I don't get paid by the hour, so if I spend an hour rambling, that's no good. But I don't want the camera to be shaky while I'm recording this. And a little bit, I'm going to spill the tea on my parents and frankly on some rather shitty parenting techniques that they used. So if you are a member of my family and you're watching this, you might want to click away, you might not. And I don't know, I guess I was just traumatized by these things. So I'm sharing them. I've learned some stuff from them. When I was 15, my girlfriend got pregnant, and my parents emphasized over and over and over again what a selfish piece of shit I was for not getting an abortion. Now, let's be clear, I was born male. I actually couldn't get the abortion myself, but I really wasn't in favor of wanting an abortion either, because in my mind, she was always my child. I didn't know it was a she at the time, obviously, and I didn't want an abortion, even though I knew it was going to make my life hard, and hard wasn't really what I wanted, but they kept telling me how selfish I was for not pushing for an abortion and not making that happen. And didn't I realize that I was destroying my life and I was destroying their lives? They kept emphasizing that. This is not about you, they said. This is about us. And I thought, well, it's not about you, and it's not about me. It's about that little person I don't know yet. So you're right, it's not about me, and I don't care if it's selfish. I don't want to have an abortion. I love that person. At least I thought I would. I was right. I do love them. I'm 42 today. Well, that little person is 26 today, and I'm very glad that they're here. And I also understand that my parents were good grandparents to that child. Okay, they showed her all the right kinds of love and attention that every grandparent should show a grandchild. So there was never a lack of love once she was here. Okay, and once they got a chance to know her, they loved her incredibly. But before then, it was, don't you know this is not a puppy? And don't you understand? Of course I didn't understand. I didn't know the financial hardships and the heartaches that were in front of me. But I would do it all over again. Okay? As hard as it was, as much as I hated going through all that crap, I would do it all over again because I love my kid that much. But at the time, I was selfish, and I was a shit kid, and I was an asshole. And how dare I do this? And I should be on my knees begging my brother and sister for forgiveness for how hard their life was going to be. Those were my father's words. Okay? And he drove that into me a lot. So anyway, fast forward a little bit into this scenario. I'm 15 years old. I'm on my bike. I'm going from my house to my friend's house at the other end of the area, the neighborhood. I lived in College Heights at the time, and he lived in one side of College Heights, and I lived at the other side of College Heights. And I'm riding my bike across the neighborhood. And this must have been September, because one of the kids that I ran into in this little adventure was in my homeroom. So school must have been going on for a little bit, and so it was probably September. It was a nice relatively nice sunny day. So I'm on my bike and I'm going down the road, and I see 3 or 4 kids on the other side of the road. And one of them, something kind of told me avoid these kids. And I was originally on the same side of the road as they were, so I go over to the other side of the road on my bike. One of them runs across the road, kicks in my back tire, bends it. So I kept on going, because it threw me, but I didn't fall off the bike. But then I'm hearing this gunk, 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 and it's because the tire was bent. So I get to my friend's house, and I'm all stressed out because I've now broke my bike. It's now my fault. And my friend had the right perspective. He's like, just tell your dad, you'll be fine, and you didn't do it, the other guy did it. You didn't provoke them or anything, and even if you had, you didn't do anything wrong. And I was all stressed out because my parents had kept drilling into me at that time that I was selfish and I was a shit kid, and what a terrible person I was, and didn't I know how horrible I was. So anyway, I call my dad. He comes down to get me, and after they did this, they ran into the one guy's house. I knew where the one guy lived. I didn't know his name real well, but we were in the same homeroom together, so that's how I knew his face. I knew that particular house was his house. So my dad comes with his truck or whatever and gets me and gets the bike, and we go over to this guy's house. But on the way over there, my dad is saying things to me like, why does this always happen to you? Like, he wanted to know why I didn't beat the kid up, and he wanted to know why I didn't avoid it in the first place. He's like, don't you get like a sixth sense for this stuff now? Don't you know these things are going to happen? In other words, it was my fault that guy broke my bike. At the end of the day, we got through the whole thing, and it was a big hassle, but we tracked down the guy who actually broke my bike, and his dad paid for it, and whatever. But at the end of the day, it really wasn't my fault, and my friend had the right perspective of, you didn't do this, you're just a victim of assault here, and you gotta sort it out and you'll be fine. It was always emphasized to me how I was a shit kid, because these things always happened to me, and it was always my fault. Hold on a second. So, fast forward a few years, and my marriage is broken up, and when that happened, I went home, and my estranged wife and my daughter are in Edmonton though. So I'm at home, and I'm staying in my parents' basement or whatever at the time. This was in between college, which I ended up not going back to college, but anyway, I'm on college break, and I'm at home, and I'm driving my grandfather's car, and I go to Edmonton to get my daughter, and I'm driving back from Edmonton to where we were at the time, which is Prince George. It's a 10-hour drive, and before this happened, my parents were really on top of me on, like, you better be grateful, and this is your grandfather's car, and you better not hurt it, and don't you know what matters, and you were ungrateful for everything you have. And they were really adamant that I was this ungrateful little shit. And then on the way back, I got my daughter in the car with me, and I was going a little fast, and I was driving maybe not as careful as I should have been, and I drifted, hit this edge of the road, and I started fishtailing, and I ended up in the ditch on the way back. Now understand, I wasn't drinking and driving or anything. I was just an inexperienced driver, and I hadn't been able to sleep real good the night before, and I was just real tired. And it's a 10-hour drive. And we were probably at about hour 6 into this 10-hour drive on the way home to my parents' place. So we fishtail, we end up in the ditch, and it was a really horrible accident. But we were both okay. We were that close to not being okay. I missed a telephone pole by about 10 feet. And we were doing about 110 an hour at the time I did that. So it was a really scary incident. And this is before cell phones, and even if they had cell phones, it's in the middle of the mountains and stuff, so there's probably no coverage there even now. So we end up in the ditch. I get out of the vehicle. I'm dazed. I walk towards the edge of the road. Suddenly I hear behind me. Turn back. Right. My daughter, who was strapped right next to me, I'm in my car now, she was in her seatbelt right next to me in the car. She was fine, but I mean, we were obviously shaken. So I run back and I grab her, and we go to the side of the road and we wait for somebody to come by and take us to the next town, which somebody did, and they did. They took us to the next town. We get on a payphone, or I get on a payphone, and I call my parents to come get me. And when they finally came and got me, they just could not stop emphasizing how they had better things to do that day, and didn't I know I was inconveniencing them. I was that close to being dead. Their granddaughter was that close to being dead. Didn't I know I was inconveniencing them? And look what I did to my grandfather's car. What the hell's the matter with me? 2 weeks prior to that, my dad had rear-ended me in that car, and it was his fault that he did it, and he never once said he was sorry. But he did take the time to smear mud all over the back end of the car where he had damaged it, so that the insurance company would pay for the whole thing, which they were going to pay for the whole thing anyway, because I had destroyed the car at that point. And I couldn't deny that I had destroyed the car. But it did seem to me that their priorities were off. And it was important to them that I grovel to my grandparents and tell them how sorry I was. And I was sorry, and I did apologize to my grandfather. But when the incident happened, and my grandfather heard that I was in that accident, but I had lived, and my daughter had lived, you know what his words were? They're still making cars. He knew. At least I think he knew. He's still alive today, by the way. But at that time, he knew how bad I felt. He knew how disappointed I was in myself, and how I was beating myself up for it anyway. And his priority was my life and my daughter's life. And his answer to what had happened was not, well, that ungrateful grandson of mine. His answer was, they're still making cars. Whereas my parents were, don't you know we had other things to do today? I'm glad that when it comes to lessons in life, I learned more from my grandfather than I did from my father. Anyway, I may or may not share this. This is just, I wanted to record this. I don't have therapy sessions with people. I can't afford to go to a clinical psychologist and share this shit. And I don't know what the lesson is in this, other than have your priorities straight, because they can always make more cars. Cars are just things. People matter. Things don't. Anyway, that's Darci's Corner. Or Darci's Archive if I don't post it. Peace.